May we see your invitation?
Odd groups got left, even groups got right.
Master, I hope I served you well.
More dots, more dots.
Too soon.
So, today we're going to be taking a look at the top 5 raids in Classic WoW, and it's important to keep note that I am including 10, 20, and 40-man content for this list. So, let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so for number 5, I'm actually going to throw a curveball. It's going to be World Boss Encounters. And the reason why I put these guys at number 5 is simply because it's the other side of 40-man raiding that a lot of people unfortunately didn't really get to experience that much in Classic. And if you did, you definitely will remember a World Boss Encounter, whether it's good or it's bad. It just takes a lot of coordination, communication, and if you're on a PvP server, it is very interesting to try to pull off because everyone's trying to fight it. It's just one of those raid encounters that you're just like, wow, either I want to do this again or I will never do this again. Alright, so coming in at number 4, we're going to be looking at Ankurage, but specifically Ankurage 40, or known as AQ 40. So this is the first raid tier in the Classic timeline, and even on the private server timeline, where the total number of guilds being able to progress through this raid started to drop off. This was due to a lot of different reasons: gear requirements, just mechanics from the bosses, the trash, consumable requirements. This is the first raid where it really started to get really expensive for guilds and players overall. And that's why I put it a little bit lower, just because it was one of those raids that was not difficult to get into, but it presented a more of a challenge rather than MC and BWL in terms of players being able to see the content. And I think that's why a lot of people still have mixed feelings about Ankurage. Some people hate it, some people love it. I don't mind it that much. I feel like the encounters and the mechanics are very unique, and it really starts to show in the development cycle of Blizzard of when they started adding more mechanics to pay attention to during boss fights. So that's why I only put it at number 4, just because it was a great raid overall. It just wasn't that friendly to the casual set of players, and that's why I put it at number 4. Alright, so looking at number 3, we have Molten Core. So the reason why I put Molten Core at number 3 is simply because it is one of those raids that is really accessible for a lot of people, and generally it was your first real raiding experience in Classic WoW, since it is the first raid tier in the Classic timeline. In addition to this, there are so many items in Molten Core that are highly sought after even in the later phases of the game. This includes Phase 5 and Phase 6. Maybe because you need a TOEP, or you need to get one of your bindings for Thunder Fury, maybe you need an Onslaught Girdle. There were just so many different items in there that was really nice and really stood the test of time in terms of the Classic timeline that you would still be using even up into Ankurage or Naxxramas sometimes until you found an upgrade. And in addition to that, all the quests leading up to level 60, especially kind of like in the mid 40s, up even into the upper 50s, they were preparing you for Molten Core. They were sitting on quest lines to get you set up for this and set up for that. So it was just one of those things that you're really encouraged and kind of like pointed towards while you're questing. So that's why I put it at number 3, because it's something that was being hyped up while we're getting to 60, and then once we got to 60, it really didn't disappoint. It was super fun, and I think we all remember our first time in Molten Core. So number 2 is actually Zulker Robe, and I know a lot of people are kind of like, what? Why would you put Zulker Robe at number 2? But let me explain. Zulker Robe entirely is not my favorite raid, but in terms of overall experience, gearing, itemization, it's phenomenal. When this raid released, it really kind of evened the playing field for a lot of classes. Warlocks were able to really chase after a lot of their hit gear. A lot of things were introduced into the game, like the leg and head enchants. And I mean, even if you're running Naxxramas, you're still going to need to go to ZG as soon as you get a head or leg upgrade. And it's because of that why I put it at number 2, just because in terms of utility and what itemization it brought to the game, that's why it deserved to be number 2, because it's something that you will probably still be running for a while, because you're probably going to need it to run it for some idols, maybe need to run it for a few bijous so you can get your potions on the island. You definitely need to run your alts through it so you can get the heart, so you can have another heart buff on hand. It brought so much to the overall experience that I felt it deserved to be this high up in the list. Alright, so coming in at number 1, we have Blackwing Lair. Let me explain why I put Blackwing Lair at number 1, though. In terms of storyline progression, it perfectly fit the next tier above Molten Core. The reason why I say this was because all throughout our quest lines, they were pointing us towards Blackwing Lair as being a threat, but we needed to go to Molten Core first to do this. And while we're doing our attunements and while we're getting some stuff ready for Molten Core, we were sent through the quest lines that led us into Blackwing Lair and gave us an idea of why we need to go in there. And so after we had finished Molten Core and we had progressed through Upper Blackrock Spire, killed General Drakiseth a couple times to get to Onyxia's lair, we knew that we needed to kill Nefarian. And that's why storyline-wise, it was the perfect second raid for Classic WoW. Other than the storyline, definitely the itemization in Blackwing Lair is insane. Some of those items are best in slot all the way through the end of Classic for some classes. Some of these items include the Drakefang Talisman, Chromatic Boots, we have Nefarian's Tear, and just the T2 overall really brought a lot to the raid. And just the gearing for T2 was a lot better than T1, just because T1 was kind of trash, in my opinion it was. But yeah, overall it's just there's so many improvements made in terms of gearing and itemization on a few different things that Blackwing Lair really kind of stood out, and there's a lot of good memories from Blackwing Lair. A lot of those boss encounters like Valstra's the Corrupt, even still to this day, is one of those things that is very intimidating to some people, and just the legacy of Blackwing Lair is really what made me want to put it at number one, because I remember my first time in there, I was like, oh my god, this is insane. It was just so much fun. The mechanics were really starting to be formed and shaped up like they needed to be, and it's just one of those raids that after you've run it, you'll never forget. You'll never forget about Blackwing Lair. Alright, so that has been the top 5 raids in Classic WoW. I did leave out Naxxramas simply because it is still kind of new, in quotation marks, for a lot of us, and we still haven't been able to finish Naxxramas and really get the full scope of what it has to offer in terms of experience, encounter, and mechanics. So until the dust has kind of been settled on it and the hype train is kind of dying down, I probably won't be including it on any raid lists just yet. It definitely is going to be in the top tier in terms of rating, in my opinion, but I'm going to give it a little bit longer just because I didn't want to discredit any of the other former raids before Naxxramas, so I just wanted to give them a fair shot in this video. So that's it for right now. If there's a list that you want to see, let me know down in the comments below, and I will do my best to get that video made for you. But until next time, you guys, please be safe, and I will see you soon in the next one. Peace.